Today, this video will show you how to display and detail cambered beams in Advanced Steel 2020. Well, I have two beams I've created here, different lengths. So if I go to the properties of the first beam, I'll find out that the naming, model role, cambered beam. Let's go to the user attributes. I've checked user attribute 1 and I put in cambered beam. On the Behavior tab, I've put checks in for the single part and the assemblies and collision check. I'll go to the properties and it shows the length of the beam. I've defined that the beam is cambered from the cambered properties panel. I put in the start distance and offset, the height of the camber, as well as other properties. So let me just X out here. So I've basically gone through the same thing with the larger beam, model role cambered. However, the only change I've made is the user attribute 1. So you see I put a check in and I put 2 just to differentiate. You'll see the cambered properties are the same. So I'll just X out of there. Now it's time to start the numbering. Single part and assemblies. Apply the changes and select OK. Now there's still some changes that we have to make in the drawing style manager. Let me just first remove the markings, clear marked objects, and from the output tab, I'm going to go to the drawing style manager, not the tool palettes. So I'll just scroll up and from the user category, I'll select the assemblies, beam front, and the object properties. This is where we need to make some changes. So for the main part beam, the presentation, I believe the default is visible hidden system helper line. That's the default that you will see. However, I want to scroll up and change this to the cambered. I'm going to hit the apply and then use, and I'll select my elements that I want to detail, being the shorter beam. So I'll just select the use again to detail the larger beam. And again, it's going on an assembly C size sheet. Let's take a look into our document manager. Again, the properties tab gives you information. Just use the slider at the bottom about the details, and the preview will give you previews, but I'll open both of them up. So as you can see in the detail 1, we have the length of the first cambered beam being 12 feet. Let's dimension our cambered display. So you want to have preferred for manual dimensions checked. So we can add points to an existing dimension. Let's do that. And dimension our camber. We also want to put in maybe the attribute that we put in. So we're going to put in a label. So I'll use the endpoint. Here's the label. We're going to double click on it to get to the properties. And the tokens will change to user attribute 1, which is cambered beam. And let's put in a leader line. I can do the same for the larger beam of 14 feet, but I'm going to just change out the prototype. So it's on a C size sheet, hard to say. Let's put that on maybe a D, an ANSI D assembly. So there we have it. That's good. Again, we can locate the cambers. We can also insert a label. Remember, we put a different attribute here. We changed it up. Double click on the label to get the properties. highlight in the window, and you're just going to scroll and find attribute 1 for the camber beam 2. And that's how to display, locate, and detail a cambered beam in Advanced Steel 2020.